Welcome to the Dream Journal. From the studios of KSQD in Santa Cruz, the Dream Journal is a weekly show where we explore the power of nighttime dreams through conversations with dream experts and with listeners like you.
In the house behind, the life you find is something understood. So there's
A dream can be meaningful even if you don't know what it means. Today's new ambient music is called Flanurify. Our guest, Alaya Dannu, shares an important message for humanity. She will speak about the dream she calls the eternal return. I am your host, Catherine Bell of Experiential Dreamwork, and welcome to the Dream Journal. We are also a weekly podcast, so please subscribe, rate, and review. Let's make the algorithm work in our favor. But most importantly, tell your friends. The journal is all about getting folks to talk about dreams. And why not start with someone in your life already? You can find archives at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and I've also just discovered you can find archives on Audible and on YouTube. There's no video, but you can listen on YouTube. You can also go to our homepage at ksqd.org at the mothership of K-Squid, ksqd.org/the-dream-journal. Follow me on Experiential Dreamwork at hashtag The Dream Journal to find out about upcoming shows. I'd like to say hello to our guest, Alaya. Hi.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, you sound
Awesome.
wonderful. So good to have you on the show.
It's good to be back. How are you?
I'm doing well. A little stressed. You know, there's some things going on in the world right now but that's okay, you know. We keep breathing.
Okay. Yeah.
We keep breathing.
Every day.
Alaya Dannu, Master of Art in Transpersonal Psychology and Master of Education, is a doctoral candidate in the Education Leadership for Change program at Fielding Graduate University. And Leadership for Change, that's what we need. I love it. Mm-hmm. Her dissertation project, an autoethnographic documentary, explores the requests of 3 ancient ancestral mothers experienced through dreams and their potential value in addressing contemporary societal and environmental issues. Alaya is also known as Amma Diya Dannu, and you can find her at the webpage houseofamma.org. Amma is 2 M's, houseofamma.org. So, Alaya, thanks so much for being on the show. It sounds like you've been really busy. You've been on the show a couple years ago, I think it was.
Yeah.
So how are your studies going? It sounds like an amazing project that you have, that you're involved in.
Well, it's good to be back, and I'm almost finished.
Great. Congratulations. Woohoo.
I'm in the final stretch of it. I'm in the process of writing. So it's like a mix of a 3-article dissertation and a documentary. So for this semester, it's finishing up the articles, writing them and having the committee review it. And then the spring semester is just editing the data, the footage, and everything that I was able to collect this past summer. And I'm hoping to be able to screen it at the next conference.
Oh, at the virtual IASD conference?
Yes.
Ooh, perfect. Yes. Yes, we'll be accepting presentations. In fact, the submissions are open right now. If you have,
exactly.
Yeah, so we go to asdreams.org if you'd like to find out about the upcoming online conference in June. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So one of your core things are the Amma. Maybe you could say, what are the Amma, Alaya? Tell us about the Amma.
The Amma translates to the mothers. Amma is a cross-cultural term that means mother. You find it in the Akan culture and Indian culture all across the subcontinent of India, and a couple of Eastern European cultures. And for me, growing up, that's a part of my tradition. It's a matriarchal. When I say matriarchal, it means mother origin. So it's not the reflection of patriarchy, which a lot of people get confused about. And it's a tradition that's passed down across generations, and it's experienced through dreams. And it's passed down from mother to daughter. So it's a tradition where, we remain connected to our source origins, mother origin, and our traditions, our practices, identity, and purpose really is held by them. And so for me, it was just a matter of awakening to that and paying attention to that growing up. Listening, to the dreams that we would experience. And my mother made it a constant thing to do dream work or dream circles, weekly, really.
Like in the family, like with the kids
family,
and everyone.
Yes,
wow.
Exactly. Yeah, she would always say, listen to your dreams. Your ancestors are going to come to you. They speak to you that way. They tell you that's who you are, and they'll reveal to you what you need to do in life, so pay attention.
Wow, what a gift she gave you. So many of us heard, oh, that was just a dream.
Yeah.
Oh, what a gift.
Yeah,
okay.
It's one that I'm deeply, appreciative of, because that's what's been my foundation for myself out in the world. Because, the world does everything to pull you away from who you are, really, giving you narratives that really don't fit and cause so many issues, your mental health, your physical well-being, your spiritual well-being. So being able to maintain that growing up is a blessing, and it's one that, I hold fast to.
Yeah, wonderful. So how would you like to set this up? Now, we're here to talk about many things, but I know one of the core things is this particular dream that you've been hinting about. And how would you like to set this up? How would you like to approach this?
So we'll just go from the Amma, really.
Okay.
They're the primordial consciousness, really. They're the ones that, according to, the tradition, they are the cosmic primordial consciousness that set up what we have, what we take part in, the earth, the elements. And then everyone's belief within that, emerged from their ancestors' experience of these primordial beings. And so to maintain balance in the world, where things are, things are in alignment, there's beauty, there's abundance, everyone has what they need. There are ways of being, practices, tradition, things that you should do, things to honor the relationships that we have, not just with each other, but with the planet itself, our place in the cosmos as well. And it's having that indigenous-oriented worldview, really, that says, that maintains the balance that needs to be. And the world has fallen out of balance, right? And just turn on the news if you watched it.
Oh boy!
And you see it. But even in our day-to-day lives, living paycheck to paycheck, not having time to just live and experience yourself, things are out of balance. So for me, those were hinted in the dreams that I've been documenting for 23 years. I started documenting them just after I turned 17, because there was a dream where it was like, there's a call, like being called. I just knew that I was being called in the dream. But called to what? I did not know. I just knew I had to pay attention. And so we arrived at December 11th, 2023, last year. I already had a research proposal question, and I thought that I would just be focusing on the Amma, like who the Amma are and where they showed up in antiquity. utilizing, my mixed ancestry just to highlight, the different parts of the world and their traditions and how I was raised, remembering that through dreams. But December 11th, it comes along, and 3 particular ancient ancestral mothers, so like the mother of the waters, the mother of the land, and the mother of a creative energy. In the Hawaiian culture, they call it the mo, so it's like a dragon type being. And so when they came down, they just started making very specific requests. And like the mother of the waters said, I want the unification of the Pacific Islands, and I want rejuvenation and renewal of the waters. And I was like, well, that's great. So of course I write it down. Right. And then the next is the mother of the land. And she's like, I want renewal and rejuvenation. I want to be cleansed. And I'm like, well, that's great. So I write that down. And then the mother of the mo'o, the mother of creative energy, really, that's what the dragons represent. These are cosmic beings, mind you. She says, I want ongoing dance veneration. And I'm like, that's great. So of course I'm writing all of this down, and I'm like, I don't know how this applies to me because I wasn't born and raised in the Pacific Islands, I was born and raised here in the US, and do have ancestry from the Pacific Island region, but they haven't really spoken. So when these 3 ancient ancestral mothers come and they speak, and their focus is on the Pacific Islands, of course I become obsessed. I'm like, oh, well, let me learn, what's the reason, what's the purpose behind that? And I get so taken over by doing research that I'm not focusing on my original research question. Right? And so I'm like, okay, I have to take this to my dissertation chair because I can't focus. So I run it by him and I let him know, and he says, well, let's create a research question. And so we do. And I'm like, okay, great. I'm going to listen to the guidance of these mothers. And I say to them, tell me, how do you want your voice to be heard? And I think that's the biggest thing. Like, what is their voice? Because they're the oldest beings in existence. They know what balance is. They created things in balance. They created things in a state of love, right? And this is not romantic love. Like, this is a state of creation where things are in alignment. And they're asking for very specific things. And so even though it sounds like, oh, it's just the Pacific Islands, I see the Pacific Islands as a microcosm of a macrocosm possibility. So if you start small, and if it unfolds in the way that leads people towards balance, then that could be an inspiration for the global collective, right? Right. But on an also deeper level, ancestral connection. But what's the ancestral connection? The cultures that are there, when you look at the dreamer and say, well, what's the dreamer's relationship to these beings? They're my kin, right? In indigenous-oriented worldview, or just even in an indigenous orientation, our ancestors are not limited to our physical family members, right? They include the water, the land, the animals, the plants.
The earth.
We interact, the earth, right? The earth and the planets around the earth and the cosmos itself, right? So for me, in understanding my nature, it was, these are kin reaching out to me saying, hey, this is what's going on. Can you help us out here?
Right.
This is what we want. Can you go around, the physical flesh and being family and tell them their other family that they don't see is asking for help. So I was like, okay, you got to tell me what islands to go to, because there are a lot of islands. It costs a lot of money, and I'm just a student.
They do. Yes, that's true.
And they gave the list. They said, you need to go to Oahu first and pay your respects to Iolani Palace. And for those of you that don't know, Iolani Palace is built upon sacred land. So it's like a diplomat going to another country, paying their respects, right?
Yeah.
And then they were like, after that, go to Maui. So I was like, all right, great. And then the third one was go to Molokai. And I was like, Molokai of all places, okay. Yeah, like, I don't know anything really about these islands outside of what we see in pop culture and social media. So of course it was diving deep into what's the deeper connection here.
Right.
And then after seeing all of that and reading about it, it's like, wow, Hawaii, in the eyes of the mothers, is still a kingdom or a country in and of itself. And then when we look at the history of how it was, how it became a state, being born and raised in the U.S., it was, well, that is a part of my kinship relation as well. Even though, being brought into the States was not willing, it's still looking at it as that is still a land ancestor. And then, of course, the deities of their culture, started to come down and talk. And like, I would have dreams where we're sitting down in circle and braiding each other's hair and eating. And I'm like, oh yeah, you're my sister. You're my younger sister. You know what I mean?
Wow.
So it was really a cry for help from family. So I go, I meet awesome people, and I share, why I'm there, because people ask, why are you here? Like, why are you in my country? And it's like, well, because I was called. I'm like, oh my God, that's amazing. At the end of the trip, it was both awesome and sad, because there was a conference that was happening that I didn't know was happening, and I was guided to go there. And when it was during FestPAC, so the Festival of Pacific Island Cultures, and when I got to this conference, it was the Pacific Protecting Oceania Conference, to talk about Pacifica philosophies and what can be utilized to bring unification to the islands. And so just to listen to these people speak, and me not tell them why I was there at the forefront, and to hear all of the things that they're wanting and desiring, towards the end, I spoke up and I said, I'm so happy to hear that that's what you want, because guess what? Our most ancient ancestors want that exact same thing. But here's some of the things that they outlined. And I remember sharing that, and they were all amazed, and they thought it was great and awesome. But at the end of the day, they weren't ready to take that first step, because they're still working through their trauma.
Right. As so many of us are.
I was just about to say, all of humanity is still struggling through that. And so, of course, I leave Hawaii. I get depressed for like 3 weeks, because I'm like, what was I supposed to do, right?
Right.
Right.
It's a huge task. Oh my gosh.
I was supposed to go have this conversation and just share and then leave, or take action, or is it not supposed to take action? Research question aside, what happens after the dissertation? Like, I don't get it, So I wallowed in despair for about 3 weeks. And then I asked the ancestors, I said, look, you have me running around spending money, and now I don't know what to do. Like, what was the whole point? And it was just like, go back to your journals. And I was like, oh, okay.
What?
Like, duh. So I go back, and one of the journal entries I randomly opened to wasn't the eternal return, but was clear, was, you're here to share information, to leave information behind, and then go on to your next task in some other realm. And I was like, oh, that's great. But what's the information? Like, what's the thing, right? And then it was just like the eternal return. I was like, oh yeah, that's that dream from 2008.
2008, 2018?
2008.
2008. Oh my
yes.
goodness. Wow. Okay.
October 3rd, 2008. So I dig up this dream and I read it, and I'm like, oh my goodness. My entire life was focused on remembering what's being spoken about in this dream. And so I'm going to share that. And then I'm also going to share how it's connected to a very old myth from the ancient Nile Valley in ancient India.
Right. And then I would love to have you tie it into what do we actually do about this.
Exactly.
Yes. Okay,
That's,
good.
That's exactly what both myths speak to. So,
Perfect.
So the dream goes, There is always an obelisk about the height of my waist between myself and an emanation of the divine feminine. The walls to my left and right always show scenes of fertile nature, mountains and lush fertile lands to one side. A body of water bordered with fertile plains are shown on the other. This emanation of the divine feminine is always moving her arms in a manner to suggest she is conjuring the myth from its creation. It always manifests itself above the opening of this obelisk with a radiant yellow gold glow. She is powerful. She is my mother and sister. Her energy is different yet similar and very familiar to mine. My ears always become filled with pressure, and goosebumps always appear on my body as chills run through me as I watch what unfolds before me. She is the divine mother, and there are always formless witnesses to the revelation of this myth. Only she and I share similar forms, woman. As I stare into the raised orb of energy, she speaks silently to me. Here is the myth as it is embedded within you, created each time you come into being. Gather the powers that be, recreate the myth, the time of its creation. I never did have to ask her what myth she was referring to. She never calls it dance or movement. She always calls it creation. And the movements are always needed in order to create. It's never a matter of which moves, but always an understanding and the embodiment of the origin of the power behind the movement. The primordial mother never says dance or movement, but instead always refers to the act as coming into being, which can be understood as coming into existence. I am destined to dream this for the rest of my life. End of dream. And so the key here is where she says, here is the myth as it is embedded within you, created each time you come into being. So with dreamers, some of us remember our past lives, right? Or we remember past lives that are relevant to our current life. And the myth that she is speaking about is the tradition, the stories, and the practices, right? That need to be brought into being each time I reincarnate. And it needs to be recreated as it once was at the very beginning of time. So in ancient thought, in particular ancient India and ancient Kemet, the ancient Nile Valley, creating something at the beginning of time is when you create things at its most pristine and healthiest, right? And so what's being asked is to reconnect to this primordial sense of time, to this primordial source that everybody has a connection to through their lines, especially through their mother lines, because we all come from mothers, bottom line, right?
Yep.
So reconnecting to that source of your mother lines. I'm not talking about your grandma or your great-great-grandmas, because some of us, some people just don't have good relationships with their mothers. But that's not what this is saying. It's saying go back to the source, the primordial source, right? And reconnect to that so that you can be rejuvenated. And as you reconnect and rejuvenate and heal that connection to all of the mothers in your line, right? From the deities down to the humans, then that is how you heal your environment, how you heal your relationships, and how you heal the planet ultimately. And so for me, what I do is the dance, right?
Right.
And so the dance itself is not about entertainment or performance. It's about reconnecting to that source and being a channel for healing energy. And as you move, or as you do the movements, that has an effect in the space around you. I don't know if you were present for the opening ceremony at the Ashland conference.
I was. Very moving. Beautiful dance. Yes.
And so with that, it's really a matter of getting people back into alignment with these primordial the ancestral mothers. Like, what does that look like for your lineage. It's not come back to mine. This is, you know what I mean? Like this is my particular group of kinship relations. You need to connect to this. No, it's connecting to your particular source.
So by witnessing the kind of dance that you did at the Ashland conference, well, it was helping us, because it really set the stage for an amazing conference, I must say. Very grounding. But I didn't know like what was happening. But you're saying that by witnessing that, and by being present with your dance, that we were connecting with our own lineages. Is that part of what was creating that sense of groundedness?
Yes.
Ah, okay.
That was me saying, please connect. Because for me, in my mind, it was, please connect everyone to a source of alignment so that they can be nourished while they're here.
Yeah.
And so even though it wasn't a workshop to, take people into a guided meditation afterwards and, see the images coming up and trace that back to their particular source through their indigenous ancestors across the globe, it was really just the taste of, okay, these are the things that we need to start doing. Because if we don't reconnect to these primordial sources where it can rejuvenate all of us, then we can't connect to the earth. And if we're not connecting to the earth, the earth is like, you're messing up my house.
Right.
Right? Like, imagine inviting a guest into your house and they start messing it up. What are you going to do?
Well, ask them to leave. I mean, that's not okay.
Exactly. And look at it at a much larger scale.
I see.
Humanity is messing up the planet, right?
Yes.
And so there are a lot of other dreams that connect to that really break it down even further. Like I've had dreams that say humanity no longer has the reverence for the earth, or humanity changes at the precipice of its own destruction. And I'm hoping that humanity chooses divine union over destruction.
Yes.
Because that's what it is. It's asking you to reconnect. That's the divine union. Reconnect to your source origin and bring that healing energy through yourself into the environment.
So, Alaya, what can we do? I mean, we're going to the break very soon, but I want to just, can you say a few words about what can we do in our lives in this moment, in this from day to day, to connect to that energy and to start to fulfill some of those requests of the three ancient mothers?
Start living the sacred. And this means going beyond your personal belief. You need to start making it a lived experience, really. So when you reconnect to these ancient sources, you need to reconnect through your bodies. You need to start looking at your body as sacred. Start looking at what you consume as sacred. And what I mean by that, not like, I want this motorcycle, it's sacred. You know what I mean? It's start looking at your relationships as sacred. And most importantly, humanity we're all kin, we're all connected. We are so deeply connected. The more divisive that we are, the more disconnected we become. That's not being sacred in your relationships. Right? So start developing practices where you're honoring the sacred, where you are respectful of each other's relationships, where you see the sacredness in relationship, the way you relate to the land that you're on, the planet, the way that you consume things. Start shifting your way of consumption to where it's eco-sustainable. Like, start living the sacred. That's exactly what you need to start doing.
Alaya, now this is wonderful. I just feel like I'm in another zone right here, and I'm so glad to have this. Is Alaya Dannu. Webpage is houseofamma.org, and I'd like to talk some more after we get back about how we can start living this sacred and how you have found this. I know you find a lot of this through the dance and through your work, and I want to talk some more, and of course we'll be opening up for phones. So thank you so much for being on the show, Alaya. Sit tight, and we'll be back to you in just a moment.
Sounds good.
So we are broadcast live from the KSQD studios in Santa Cruz and co-broadcast live in San Jose by KCXU. We are speaking to Alaya Dannu about the requests of the ancient mothers and how we can bring sacredness into the life. We'll be back in just a moment. Okay, welcome back. You are listening to the Dream Journal. I'd like to welcome our far-flung listeners. We have a crew on board this morning. We have lots of locals: Santa Cruz, Los Gatos, Watsonville. We also have Salem, Oregon, Gilbert, Arizona, Tucson, Arizona, New Albany, Ohio, Toronto, Ontario, and California, Norfolk, Virginia, Brooklyn, New York, and then from overseas, Stuttgart, in Germany. Thanks so much for being a listener. These live streams give you the opportunity to send us emails or to call in. So glad to have you all listening. Next week, we're going to have a special Day of the Dead show, and we will host Marta Arley, who will speak about spiritual dreams and dreams of loved ones who have crossed over. So if you have dreams in those categories, anything you would consider spiritual or spooky, maybe think about calling in next week for our Day of the Dead show with Marta Arley. You can check us out on Instagram and Facebook by following #TheDreamJournal. So welcome back to the Dream Journal. Today's guest is Alaya Dannu, and the webpage is houseofamma.org, AMMA. And we already have a caller on the line. Are you there?
Yes, I am here.
Ah, wonderful. Where are you calling from, Kimberly?
I am calling from Gilbert, Arizona.
Thank you so much for calling, Kimberly. What can we do for you?
Yeah, so my question for Alaya, and it was absolutely wonderful, so the entire breakdown. But my question is, as we are going about the process of healing and integrating back with the sacred and including things like rituals and our daily lived experiences and making the conscious connections back, how do we also begin in unison with that? I believe what also has to happen is some type of method or process for healing, because so many people are so disconnected that just saying, okay, now start, integrating the sacred, now start doing these, that they can't hear. They can't receive, they don't understand. And so what would you say would be, if you had to name 3 top things that people can start doing today, right where they're at, in terms of getting to a point of healing that they can be open enough to go down a path of reunification? What would the top 3 things be?
Good question.
I love that.
Really
I love
well.
that.
Mm-hmm.
So first, when it comes to, where do I begin? Going back to the mothers. It's always going back to where you first began, right? In your mother's womb. And that doesn't necessarily mean your mom or your grandmother. It's looking into your ancestry, really. You go back to the indigenous people of your lineage. Start doing that investigation. And if you don't know where exactly, okay, start with the parts of Europe that you feel called to, or that you feel, that your European ancestors come from, or your African ancestors, or your Indian ancestors. Start with that. You have to take that first step of understanding who you are and those original beings, so those original practices. Also, start looking at how things came into being. That's probably the hardest part, because then it brings to the surface, all of the harms that have happened, all of the things that people could have done but couldn't do because of the industrialization, of the disconnect, right? So it's being able to look at how the disconnect happened. So first it's, let me go back and reconnect. And as you're uncovering the source that you descend from, then it's looking at, well, how did it get so disconnected? Have a supportive community as you do that, because things are going to come up that are just going to cause you to stop. right? The healing process is going to be a messy one. It's not going to be, light and love and kumbaya and that's it, right? Because you have to understand how it came to be this way so you don't repeat the same mistakes.
Yeah.
Right? And not passing judgment. Do not take on that grief. Do not judge yourself. Do not think horribly of yourself or your ancestors, because then, again, that will get in the way of your healing process. Healing also means reconnecting. It doesn't mean, oh, I'm broken, I need to be fixed.
Right.
It means becoming aware of and realigning. So those are the two major things, and make sure, you have your supportive people or your supportive group to support you in that process, to help you release that, and taking up physical practices to help you move that through your body. So if you don't like to dance or you don't feel like you don't know how to dance, that's fine. Get into ecstatic dance, authentic movement. Take up a movement practice, yoga, Pilates even, ballet, whatever it is to help you move your exploration through your body and out of your body. And then as you're doing that, also look into setting up sacred space in your house. Start with your kitchen, start with your bathroom, and then your bedroom, and then move it into other rooms of your space. Making that a part of your day-to-day practice, it opens up your awareness, and then you'll be better guided on what specifically you need to do. But I think those are great first steps. Realign with their ancestry, and I mean the ancestral beings, their knowledge, and when they see that you're doing that, they will begin to guide you. Understand how things came into being so you don't make the same mistakes. Right? And then take up a practice that helps you to integrate and develop the sacred in your life.
Wow. Beautiful.
Yes, I love it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Kimberly. So glad you called in.
Thank you. Yeah.
Right. Alaya, I love what you're saying about just taking the steps to begin creating sacred spaces, like starting with the bathroom and the bedroom and the kitchen and those places that we see every day.
Yeah. Well, bringing that attention and awareness, because like I said, if you invited somebody into your house and they started messing it up, you would have them removed. Mm-hmm. And so if you can demonstrate to the planet, hey, I know how to respect and honor the spaces that I'm in. Okay, you get to stay. You know what I mean? So it's just really taking those steps to become aware. You're not on this planet, you're not on the land by yourself. There are energies, there are consciousness that have been here longer than you've existed. That's still in your space. We look at the dream realm as many realms, right?
Right.
Still existing at the same time as we're awake and walking about and when we're asleep. It's no different with these ancestral beings, but with the greater consciousness of the earth and the land. So developing that sacred relationship, honoring that they exist, that they're there, that they were here before you, is so very important, because we can't exist without the earth. And that's like the main point I want everyone to walk away with. The earth is okay without the human species. The human species is not okay without the earth.
Very true. I'm starting to see these connections about the body and movement and the house. Like the body itself is a space, it's a sacred space.
Yes.
I'm just finally making this connection. And there's some way that by the, you talk so much about movement and you have this amazing dance practice and that's very much the same thing as making the bathroom a sacred space, making the kitchen a sacred space. It's acknowledging that the beauty and that we inhabit these places, including our bodies.
Including your bodies. Yeah. And so when you nourish your bodies, how are you honoring that? Through the drive-through?
Oh, no.
Right? Or are you being very intentional about what you're putting into your sacred body, your sacred space, right? So amplify that from your body to your room, from your room to the house, from the house to the land it's on, from the land it's on to the state you're in, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You know, I know not everyone's going to want to do that. At the end of the day, it's your choice, but don't forget whose house you're in, right? Ultimately, you're on the planet's house. This is her house or his house. However you look at the planet, it's the planet's home.
Yeah.
Right? So just be really mindful of that. If you can't take care of your home, how are you going to take care of the bigger home that your home is on?
Wow. And so these are the ways that we start to answer these requests of the ancient ancestral mothers.
Yes. And that's what I love about like the ongoing dance veneration, for example. When I look at the dance that I do, wherever I travel, that's the offering I give, right? And so when people think, oh, that's like your own creative thing, and it's like, no, it's something that's been passed down across generations, right? We go back to two places, two locations of my ancestry in ancient India. The temple dancers, they danced to honor that space because that space is where the divine resided. And so it was like an offering. And in that offering, that primordial energy kept the land nourished and plenished and prosperous, right? And same in the Nile Valley. There's a dissertation by Dr. Barbara Richter. She's an Egyptologist, and I just want to read a brief passage from her work. And pretty much what she says, that she, in her interpretation, I know it's it's Eurocentric, but the dreams help me to have a conversation across time and space with the originators of this particular myth. And what she says here is having the creative ability inherent within the creative power of these primordial beings. So the power used by the creator to create the world, given to humankind as a benefaction, right? So the pharaohs, so to speak, were the intermediaries, and they were connected to this source, to these primordial mothers. And so with their connection, right, she says, in possessing Hathor's creative power or creative primordial ability, the pharaoh has at their disposal the tools necessary to create, to cause things to come into being. When performing the rituals, his powerful words and actions thus access the primordial energy used to create the universe. So when you're connected to this primordial source, the actions you take, the words you speak, that is what helps to renew the land or rejuvenate your space. So when these primordial mothers are saying, I want ongoing dance veneration, I know what they're talking about. They're saying, when you're connected to me and you do ongoing dance veneration, you are feeding the space with my primordial energy to help bring balance to the space. When she says, I want a renewal and cleansing of the land, the way you move through the space that you're in, the offerings that you give, it's like you give dinner to yourself or to your friends and family, you're giving that same offering to these beings, even though they're not physically there, they're energetically there. And so if you take the time to go back and reconnect to your source origin, these particular mothers in your ancestry, they are feeding you that energy, and you in turn are feeding the space with that energy. And that is what is supposed to help bring about balance. It's not a simple wave of the wand. This isn't Harry Potter, or you know what I mean? It's work. You have to actually engage it and embody it and live it, and that's how it radiates. Otherwise, we're just going to keep going down. Humanity's going to go down the path of destruction if it doesn't go about the path of divine union, reunifying with this primordial mothers.
There's something here that's just kind of up for me about the, you say that, the earth doesn't need humans, but humans do, need the earth, which is true. And yet there's something about humanity that we are able to consider the sacredness. Like, I don't know that other creatures do have this ability, and maybe that's something that we can offer the earth is our love and our appreciation of this.
Well, I mean, we look at the other species, animal species on the planet. They're not desecrating it.
No, they are
right?
not. They're not.
They're not. So, as the human species is the only species that is capable of creating things, right? Why can't we take the time to actually create balance that benefits all beings and the planet, right?
Yes. No, I agree. I think there's maybe it's like a two-handed sword that we have as humans with destruction and also, creation.
Creation, exactly.
Yeah.
But it's creation in alignment with balance, right? Because you can be creative and it's still destructive.
Oh,
right?
True. Yes, yes.
So it's in alignment with balance, and it's really understanding what was the invitation to begin with. Like, why would the earth invite, souls to come have a physical experience? Was it to actually destroy her home? No. Right? And so your personal beliefs aside, it's really looking at it as you being invited to dinner, being invited for a vacation, being invited for a period of time, because that's exactly what it is. Now, when people invite you to their homes for a dinner party or for, their vacation home for a week, you're not trashing the place.
Right.
You may have different views on things, but you're still together and you're still, in harmony.
Respectful. Yeah. So Alaya, I would like to invite you to tell us a little bit about the documentary. I know it's not complete, right? But you're in the process, and we're just in the last few minutes of the show. And I guess I would like you really. I've changed that. Whatever you would like to talk about, we have just another minute or two left, and I just invite you to share with us what you're doing now that's exciting and what you want us to hear.
Yeah, so the documentary itself is going to have a lot more information about this process. It will also demonstrate at how so deeply connected we are as a species, because one of the requests from the mothers is for one of her sons, so to speak. So one of the humans that is connected to her across time and space, and just how ignoring that request, because I did try to reach out to this person. I did try to meet this person. And he decided not to, So it's like, well, what happens when you have the means to bring about the change, but you choose not to listen? And so I'll be going into more detail about that in the documentary. So look out for that when that, stay in touch with ISD for their summer conference and thereafter. It will also be available, beyond that. Also, I am currently in Pasadena, California, guided by the mothers as well, because I wanted to go to San Diego and they said no.
Okay.
They said, no, you're going to LA. And I was like, I don't like LA. You have to tell me where and why. And they said, well, you'll be more successful there. And they showed me Pasadena on a map with a heart around it. So I'm in Pasadena, and part of that is to start developing a community around this, really, and to network and to get this get this out there to as many people as possible, because this is the work now. Like, if any of you watch Marvel, we're in the end game, so to speak.
Yeah.
So it's like, this is where I'm at right now, and I'm looking to collaborate with healers in the community that really want to pivot in their work and engage the requests of these mothers.
Wonderful. And so how should folks get in touch with you? Is it through your webpage or where?
Definitely through the website, houseofamma.org, on Instagram, house.of.amma, AMMA. Or you can email me, same houseofamma@outlook. That would be one of the three ways to get in touch. And like, definitely, if you feel moved to become, a dancer where we can go out across the world and dance and bring healing, definitely reach out, because that's, ongoing dance veneration. I can do but so much. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Alaya Dannu. Thank you for being on the show, and I'm excited to see this video and to see what you're coming up with next. And it's been a pleasure to have you on the show.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I love it.
All right. Take care. Aloha.
Okay, thanks. Aloha. Mahalo. Mahalo.
Mahalo. All right. So thank you all for listening. The Dream Journal is produced at the studios of KSQD in Santa Cruz. We are live every Saturday at 10 a.m. Pacific at ksqd.org. The podcast is released on the Monday after the show. It spreads interest in dreaming when you subscribe, rate, and review. Contact me if you'd like to be a guest on the show to promote a new book or your dream-related offerings. I am Catherine Bell. Find out about my dream coaching practice at experientialdreamwork.com. You can email me at catherine@ksqd.org, KATHERINE, at ksqd.org. Follow Experiential Dreamwork and hashtag the Dream Journal on Facebook and Instagram to find out about upcoming shows. I'd like to thank Rick Kleffel, also Eric Nelson, and the intro and outro pieces are both by Mood Science. Tomorrow morning, when you wake up, take a minute to write down your dream and bring it to the next Dream Journal.
Status quo, it's not as stable as it seems. You can command your kind, but not a